You're standing in your kitchen. The morning light hasn't quite filled the room yet. You're holding your phone, scrolling through messages, and there it is again. That familiar tightness. Someone canceled plans. A project shifted. Something you were counting on just changed. And your first impulse, so automatic you barely notice it, is to try to put it back, to fix it, to make things return to how they were supposed to be. But they won't. They can't. Because everything is already moving. You've been living with this quiet exhaustion for so long that it feels normal now. The exhaustion of trying to hold things in place, trying to keep what's good from leaving, trying to push away what's uncomfortable, building something stable, something permanent, something you can finally rest inside. But the moment you think you've got it, something shifts again. A relationship changes. Your body feels different. The certainty you had last week doesn't feel certain anymore. And you're left holding on tighter, planning harder, controlling more carefully, wondering why your shoulders won't drop, why your jaw stays clenched, why rest never quite arrives. Today, we're going to explore one of Jack Kornfield's most liberating insights, drawn from his book, Living Dharma, and the teachings of masters like Ajahn Chah and Suzuki Roshi, not as theory, not as philosophy, but as something you can recognize right now in the way you're relating to your own life, something about the nature of change and what happens when you stop fighting it. Kornfield begins with something so simple, it sounds obvious. All things change. Pleasure and pain, gain and loss, praise and blame. Everything changes. You already know this. Intellectually, you've always known it. But look at how you live. Look at the way you organize your days around the hope that this time, this thing, this person, this feeling will stay. That if you just get it right, if you just hold on carefully enough, you can make something last. He tells a story about being in a room one evening. The windows were broken, couldn't be opened. It got stuffy. They turned on a fan. It got too cold. They turned it off. It got stuffy again. And the mind wants to say, I just want it perfect. I just want it this way, and I don't want it to change. But then comes the truth. Wrong planet. Everything changes here. That's how it is. You're in a conversation with someone you love, and mid-sentence, you feel it. That slight distance, that tone that wasn't there last week. Something's shifting, and immediately, your mind starts working. What did I do wrong? How do I fix this? How do I get back to how we were before? You're not even present anymore. You've already left the moment. You're fighting something that hasn't even fully arrived yet. Your hands are gripping air, or you're at work. You had a plan, a clear direction. Then everything shifts. New priorities, different expectations, and your whole body tightens. Your chest contracts. Your breath gets shallow because you thought you knew. You thought you had it mapped out. And now the ground beneath you feels uncertain again. Watch what's happening. The change itself isn't the problem. Plans shift all the time. Relationships evolve. Bodies age. This is just what happens. But you, watching your own life unfold, feel the shift coming and immediately brace. Immediately try to manage it. Immediately start building walls around what you have, trying to make sure nothing slips away. And that bracing, that constant low-level tension, that refusal to let things move, that's what burns you out. Kornfield describes it clearly. At the root of suffering is a small, frightened heart, a heart afraid to trust the river of change, afraid to surrender to this shifting world. This small, closed heart struggles desperately to control the unpredictable. But you can never know what's going to happen. With wisdom, you let that not knowing become a form of trust. A tree doesn't resist autumn. The river doesn't fight the current. The sky doesn't try to hold on to the clouds. They move, they shift, they transform, and there's no suffering in it. But you tense, you grip, you try to freeze what's already flowing, and then wonder why everything feels so heavy. Kornfield, quoting his teacher, Ajahn Chah, says something you need to hear. When we resist change, it's called suffering, not change itself, not loss itself, not the ending of things. Your resistance to it, your refusal to let life move, like trying to grip water. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips through, and you're left with cramped hands and the exhaustion of having tried so hard. Think about the last time something ended. A job, a phase of life, a version of yourself you'd grown comfortable with. You probably spent weeks, maybe months, trying to prevent it, analyzing what went wrong, planning how to reverse it, lying awake, replaying scenarios. All that energy, all that effort, all that mental noise. And it ended anyway. Not because you didn't try hard enough, but because some things end regardless of how tightly you hold them. And here's what you probably didn't notice. The ending itself might have taken a day, a moment, a conversation, but your suffering around it, that lasted much longer. Because suffering isn't the change. Suffering is the story you tell about the change, the resistance, the demand that it should have been different. So what's the alternative? Kornfield doesn't offer a technique. He offers something quieter, acceptance, not as passivity, not as giving up, but as a courageous step in the process of transformation. You can fight what is. You can judge it, blame others, blame yourself. Or you can accept what cannot be changed, not because you like it, not because it doesn't hurt, but because fighting it only adds another layer of pain on top of what's already here. He says you cannot avoid changes. You cannot avoid loss. If you already expect that life will have ups and downs, your mind will be much more at peace. This isn't resignation. This is clear seeing. Everything you're attached to is temporary. Your body, your relationships, your certainties, your sense of who you are, all of it moves. All of it shifts. You can spend your whole life trying to make it stop, or you can learn to move with it. There's a phrase Kornfield uses. You cannot stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. The surfer doesn't control the ocean. The surfer learns to ride what's already moving, to feel the swell, to lean into the shift, to find balance not by making the water still, but by staying present with its motion. This is what spiritual freedom looks like. Not a life where nothing changes, but a heart that's no longer terrified of change. Kornfield speaks of equanimity, that quality of balance that remains steady in the midst of shifting circumstances. And he's clear. This isn't detachment. This isn't coldness. Equanimity arises when you stop demanding that life be different than it is. When you let the seasons change, inside and outside, without bracing against them. He says there is a beauty to be found in the changing of Earth's seasons, and there is an inner grace in honoring the cycles of life. The wise heart is at peace with things as they are, not because the world stopped changing, but because the heart stopped insisting it should. Just this breath, notice where you've been bracing, maybe in your shoulders, maybe in the way you're holding this moment. And just for now, soften, not because you've figured anything out, just because for this one breath, you're not fighting. Kornfield says, when we recognize that life is not under our control, we can feel the possibility of balance in our hearts. This is the shift from trying to control to learning to balance, from demanding permanence to finding composure in the midst of impermanence. He quotes Suzuki Roshi, when we realize the everlasting truth that everything changes and find our composure in it, we find ourselves in nirvana. Nirvana, not in the Himalayas, not in some ancient text, not in some future when you finally get it all together, but here, in your own heart, in the midst of change. When you stop resisting it, you have 10,000 joys and 10,000 sorrows. You have an ocean of tears and all the beauty of the world. To live wisely, you have to find your composure in the midst of all of it, not by freezing it in place, not by making it stop, but by letting it move through you without clinging, without pushing away. So here's the question, not for you to answer right now, just to live with, to sit with, to notice. What would happen if you stopped trying to make things stay? What if just for today, you let the conversation shift without steering it back? Let the plan change without immediately rebuilding it. Let the feeling arise and pass without needing it to be different. What if the stability you're searching for isn't found in making life stop moving, but in learning to move with it? Kornfield says it clearly. Peace is already present in your heart, here and now, not as something you achieve, but as something you uncover when you stop disturbing it with your resistance. All things change, and when you stop fighting that truth, when you stop carrying the tension of trying to make them stay, you find that you've been holding something that was never yours to hold. And in the letting go, there's not emptiness, there's grace. If this touches something true in you, stay with us. We walk these paths together, not to arrive somewhere, but to discover we were never separate from the peace we sought. Until next time, let it move.